In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we have a super awesome guest, C. Red Fred, and we'll be talking Bears, we're talking the start of baseball season, maybe jump into will Pete Rose get reinstated based on the latest news. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season is going on right now, so head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. All right, we have an awesome guest, C. Red Fred. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you should, because he's a good follow and is a very knowledgeable Bulls guy and just an all-around nice guy. I've gotten to hang out with Fred a few times in the real world, and he's just a really cool dude.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Alex, for saying that. Sean, good to talk to you too. Congrats on the 500 show. Man, it's awesome to talk to you guys. Alex, are you related to Jay?
Yeah, he's my older brother.
Get out of here, man. That's awesome. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Holy
yes,
cow. I didn't make the connection before.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
He's 6 years older than I am. He's a new father. I'm a new uncle, soon to be new godfather. So yeah, exciting times.
That is so cool. Yeah, Jay's a great dude, man. And I never made the connection before, but wow, that's awesome.
You're not the only one. It's kind of funny because I've had a lot of people who followed me on Twitter for a long time and followed him on Twitter for a long time and interacted with us, and they'd be like, wait a minute, are you two related? And not only the answer is yes, but if you go on his Twitter profile and if you look at his Twitter picture, him walking off the bus at his wedding, that's me right behind him. So you could take a look.
That is hilarious.
That. Yeah.
Did you go to Illinois too?
No. I went to Concordia, Chicago, much smaller school,
cool.
but still a big Illinois fan. I've grown up. You know, my mom went to Illinois. Jason went to Illinois. A lot of my cousins and my godfather went to Illinois. So we're definitely very, very pumped about this run that they're on, hoping they can get to the Elite Eight. But hey, the fact that they made it to the Sweet 16, I mean, I can call this season a win for that. And I'm sure a lot of Illini fans can too. So, but want to go as far as possible, obviously.
Absolutely. The Orange Leviathan. Yeah, I went to U of I. Huge fan. So, I still remember 2005 like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Still can't believe we lost that. But, that was probably that game against Arizona was probably the highlight of my basketball life in that Elite Eight game. So that was arguably the best basketball game I ever saw. So, I bleed orange and red, obviously for the beloved Bull. But, man, I just hope they can do something great here. My daughter goes to Purdue, though. She's actually a freshman there. She broke my heart, got into U of I, and somehow announced she was going to Purdue.
Oh man,
which was a real shocker. Yeah, so I blame it on my wife. But big picture, I still, I respect Purdue, but I'm cheering for the Illini.
Yeah, right. And we need some good basketball with the Bulls roller coaster that we've had to endure and the upcoming play-in tournament that I'm sure everyone is just so thrilled for. And hey, if we get past the play-in tournament, we get the honor of getting swept by the Celtics.
You guys are lamenting, oh, Illinois basketball breaking our hearts. I went to DePaul. So,
okay. Oh my God.
I mean,
oh my God. I'm so sorry.
My freshman year was Tommy Kleinschmidt. So, started off, I was like, all right, this is not so bad. Tommy Kleinschmidt, we made the tournament and then just after that it was just abysmal.
Well, I'm old enough to remember as a very young boy, I remember, Rod Strickland, very young. I remember, those some of my earliest basketball memories and going to, it was the Rosemont Horizon at that time to watch, Joey Meyer and the Blue Demons, and God rest his soul. But man, it was Ray Meyer still too. I can barely remember, but that was an epic era of basketball. My dad always tells me about in the late 70s with DePaul. I almost went to DePaul's between DePaul and U of I. So I do have a warm spot in my heart for DePaul too, but man, it has been dark times lately.
What
Really
about
dark.
my man Dave Corzine?
Dave Corzine, I don't. You know how I feel about Luke Cornett and a lot of these these slow white plotting bull centers. I feel the same way about Dave. Not one of my favorite players. So let's get off that topic very quick.
DePaul basketball legend.
Nice guy, that's what I hear, but he sucked at basketball in the pros, at least. In college, he was a fine college player.
All right, Fred, we wanted to bring you on to talk Bulls, where we are, where the hell we go from here. And it's weird because we talk about this team like they're just the dregs of the NBA, and they're not. They're just not anywhere near championship level. Like, how did we get here? Like, how did we get here?
How did we get here? That's a great question. How did we get here? Well, let's start out by this and looking at this season. Like, what's I find so frustrating about this year is if you look, Kobe White has made this incredible jump. Ayo Dosunmu has made a really solid improvement, I think. Again, he's made a mini jump. You've had career year for Alex Caruso, and you still have DeMar playing at a pretty high level. Yet overall, with the massive disappointments and injury-riddled season for Zach LaVine and the complete failure of what I call major minus, the big recruiter, Vucevic, his decline from a stretch 5 to constrict 5, and also Patrick Williams, other disappointing players. It's just been counterbalanced. Like these guys that have taken a step forward, it seems like every year it's counterbalanced by a major injury, a major decline from one of their players. And, what's the result? Between 40 and 45 wins. That's what this team is and what it's built like. I'm one of those people that really always kind of argued that Gar and Pax weren't as bad as people think. I'd point that the only, remaining player on this team that was drafted by that team is Kobe White. And, I thought they did a pretty good job drafting talent over those years. And that's where you really got to succeed in Chicago. You have to be able to draft talent because this ownership team is not going to spend an insane amount of money to create a championship contender. So you got to really grow it within. And the Bulls just they've had too many misses in recent years. Patrick Williams at 4, regardless of how you feel about him, I think he's going to be a solid role player. He's a good shooter and a good 3-point shooter, but he's shown me nothing to indicate that he's going to be, an exceptional all-star type player. And you passed on, a guy like Halliburton or some other good players after that. I think Okoro
that pains me.
Even,
it really does. Think about Halliburton all the time. I was at the Bulls Pacers game with my brother. Fun fact. When Halliburton just went completely off against the Bulls and had that historic night. I was sitting in the 300 level at the United Center with a bunch of Pacers fans behind me cheering in my ear.
Oh, that sounds great, Alex. I just can't imagine anything more nauseating than that.
Yeah.
Pacers, and the few Pacers fans that there are out there are very loud and boisterous. It's just so frustrating when you think that you could have had a player like that. And what makes it even worse is like he went to Iowa State. He's the exact type of player Garpax would have probably drafted. I mean, you look at their career and the players that they picked, Derrick Rose, Ben Gordon, Luol Deng, Kirk Heinrich, Taj Gibson at 26, Jimmy Butler at 30, even a guy like Bobby Portis, who was in the 20s, had a long career, now Kobe White and Lauri Markkanen. They were very good at drafting and finding talent. They had a few misses like everybody has, but for the most part, they did a really good job in the draft. Their issue was they just seemed to turn off the entire media base. They turned off the entire fan base. They weren't good marketers for themselves. And also they obviously had some problems in hiring the right coaches. And the Boylan was a fireable offense. That was one of the worst coaching hires in the history of any organization in Chicago. But I still think they did an underrated job in acquiring and drafting talent. This current group, if you look at it, sent away Wendell Carter Jr. We basically got the albatross of Vucevic in return, and the 2 draft assets that they used to help build their team. You look, we sent out Lauri Markkanen, and what's left for that? We have a protected first-round pick, non-lottery pick from the Trailblazers that probably won't ever convey until 2028. That's all we have left for Lauri Markkanen. It's just insane. And this current front office has shown no hesitancy to move what was already on the roster and some very good players. Max Strus, they decided to cut. He was rehabbing from an ACL injury, but he was in their building. They saw him every day. They didn't need him. They let him go. And then Wendell Carter, they traded, who I happen to like more than I do Vucevic. They traded Laurie, so they've had no hesitancy in moving the previous group's players. They just can't seem to cut bait with some of the mistakes that they've had on the current roster.
How much do you attribute to the front office mistakes? How much do you attribute this to the ownership?
I give it 90% on the front office and 10% on ownership. I agree. This is a major market, and I'd like to think that the front office would be more willing to go into the tax. I just don't think that there's many owners that would want to pay a tax for a team that's not a title contender. And they've shown no reason to believe that they're a title contender. Even if everybody was healthy, like everybody talks about Lonzo Ball. Well, look how good we were 2 years ago. That Boston Celtics team was 25-25 up until the middle of that year. It was a completely different team after, halfway through the season. You look at the teams that have improved significantly in Cleveland, in New York, even Milwaukee, the Orlando Magic. You look at all these teams in the East that have gotten significantly better by adding legitimate talent, and you just assume that if Lonzo Ball was healthy, that we'd be still number one in the East. It's kind of like insane. It's totally insane. I do understand what they were trying to do with that Vooch trade. Vooch at the time he was traded for with Orlando was 40% three-point shooter on high volume, 6 attempts per game. That's excellent. For a center, it's excellent. You open up runways for guys like Zach LaVine, for DeMar DeRozan, for Lonzo Ball, if you have a center that can pull out opposing bigs. He's devolved down to sub 30 in the 28% range from three. I can't even describe what a monumental collapse and how that's just absolutely had a catastrophic effect on the ceiling for this Bulls offense. It's the number one reason. And I hear all this insanity about, every time I watch the show and I hear Stacy and the whole crew from 1989, Will Perdue, I love those guys. They're great guys, but they don't seem to understand the only math that matters, the only simple math that matters. 3 is greater than 2. And there's a reason that most teams don't post up anymore, because it's not an efficient way to play an offense. Unless you have, an Embiid, unless you have a Jokic. Vucevic isn't good enough to throw the ball into the post and expect good things to happen. Not efficient. There's no advanced metric that tells you it's a good idea, but that's all I hear when I watch these broadcasts. So, I hate to say it. I do understand what they were trying to do. In retrospect, it was a major mistake that's going to have massive ramifications for this team. The biggest mistake, though, is doubling down on that and signing them to a 3-year deal.
Right.
That's my
I can't even believe it.
Yeah. If you bring a guy over based on what he's done and he just doesn't perform, that sucks, but you see the logic in it. But then when you sign him to an extension, that was bad.
Insane. And when you think about it, I even could have tolerated a 2-year deal. But my point is, they got it. They did a great job in getting Kobe White and getting Io on combined. They're basically making $20 million over the next 3 years per year. 2 players that are rotation players, one who's approaching all-star caliber, another one who's approaching starter caliber, playing for $20 million combined. That 3rd year, you're going to have a ton of room or ton of assets to potentially make trades, to potentially sign free agents. And you screwed it up by paying Vucevic $21 million in year 3 of this contract. He is going to look so awful in that year. And that's the last thing you need, is another albatross on your salary cap. Just adding that 3rd year really bothered me. It was just so stupid. I want to know the team that was going to pay Vucevic $21 million in a 3-year contract. It's just insanity. So now, those kind of moves really bothered me. I don't understand what they're thinking with that. Gosh, what has been a problem since this group took over? We have no rim defense. It's horrific. and we have no 3-point shooting, consistent, good, really good 3-point shooting. And that Gafford trade is one of the most underrated, dumb trades that this group has made. Another player on the roster who's clearly more valuable than any other center on this team, provides rim defense, rim running, attacking, and you traded him for, Brown, who sucked. I knew that guy sucked. And then you get, Javonte Green, a nice story. He's got a 3 body with 5 skills playing the 4. But he wasn't a long-term answer, not good. That was a horrific trade. And so, they just keep on making these mistakes and compounding the issue. But in their defense, that Lonzo Ball injury, man, that really was a real, catastrophic also step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said about looking at the Lonzo Ball injury. And I think you can look at it both ways and say, listen, if you had a healthy Lonzo Ball, would you be better? Sure. But would you be a championship contender? No, because you can look back at 21-22 and I think, okay, if you have a healthy Lonzo Ball throughout the year, yeah, maybe you are a bit of a higher seed. But I also think, too, you look at that year and say, how much of that year was carried by DeMar DeRozan playing like an MVP? And listen, DeMar DeRozan,
Yes.
like you said earlier, is still very, very good, and he's clutch as hell, but he was playing like an MVP that year. And how many games did he bail out the Bulls, even in that season when things were going, quote, right, outside of the Lonzo Ball injury? I mean, he had 2 buzzer-beating game-winning shots in a row. Like,
Pacers,
that doesn't
yep.
happen, right? I mean, it's just, you got to factor that in too, I feel.
I agree completely. He got MVP votes that year. So
yeah,
he played just out of his mind. Excellent player. And I really respect and like DeMar. I think he's an excellent guy. Number one, I was at a Windy City Bulls game and he shows up on a Saturday night to support, I think it was Dale and Terry. I mean, how many guys in the league would do that?
Not many.
At his level, to take time out of your day and go support a teammate. And just a great leader, a great guy. And that was a great signing. I'll hand it to these guys to get him. It's basically risen, he's a floor raiser, right? But how far are you going to go with him? Because he's got limitations at hitting the 3. Sometimes he plays a little bit too much hero ball. I'll still defend him. I still want him to resign him. I think you got to now. But it's just so frustrating just to see where this team is at again, because it just seems like we sent out a ton of assets to get to 500 again. And that's all I heard. That was the biggest condemnation of the previous FO, front office is, in the 3 alphas is your 500 team. And at least they put the fear of God in some teams. Like they were up 2-0 on the Celtics in round 1. I don't see this group being up 2-0 on anyone.
No.
I hope I'm wrong.
No.
Yeah,
No,
they've sort of painted themselves in a corner with DeMar DeRozan because he's about to turn 35 this summer, and you're gonna let him walk away, for nothing. Like you didn't trade him, and he's buoyed your team, so he's kept you in this playoff hunt. And is that the front office's goal at this point? Is just to make the playoffs so they can say they made the playoffs?
I think what's going to happen is they're probably going to be 9 or 10 and they're not going to get in the playoffs again. They're going to lose in the play-in. They might win the first one, but I don't see them beating the Heat or whoever in the second play-in. So they're going to miss it again for the second year in a row. And I think they're going to justify it with the fan base, or attempt to, by saying that, well, look at all the injuries we had. Zach LaVine, no doubt a very important player for the team. He's out. Patrick Williams out. There's no argument. They had a lot of key injuries to key players in the rotation, right? But that's, Craig was in and out of the lineup. Caruso was in and out of the lineup. But that said, I don't know how you can possibly bring this team back as is. My problem is I don't see a lot of options. Who's taking Vucevic off this roster? No one's going to take him unless you're attaching an asset. Who's taking Zach LaVine? Nobody is, unless you're attaching an asset. The Bulls can't be in the business of attaching a first-round draft pick or an asset just to get Zach LaVine off the roster. And I'm also concerned that, let's just play this out and let's pretend that Philadelphia loses in the first round, has another disappointing year. I think there's a good chance that they might throw a massive contract. They got a ton of cap space over to DeMar, take him off our roster, and I think the decline would be significant if DeMar DeRozan wasn't on this team. We have no one on this roster who gets to the free throw line but him consistently. I guess Kobe White and Zach when he's healthy. But, for free throw attempts on this team, he's the only guy who's consistently getting there. Taking him off the roster, I think it's a very undervalued asset. Put in perspective, DeMar has 535 free throw attempts. You know who's number 2? Kobe White at 237. Number 3 is Andre Drummond at 195, and number 4 is Vucevic at 110, 7 ahead of Zach LaVine. So, I mean, imagine taking that guy out of your lineup, who's the only guy who can draw fouls, put pressure on the other team, get, efficient points at the free throw line at a high percentage. I just think the team would collapse pretty much. I'm not a believer in that. I think that whole idea that, well, Patrick Williams, you need to get rid of DeMar so he can thrive is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. And the numbers show that. There's not a huge sample size, but there were 5 games or so where I believe Patrick Williams played that DeMar was out. And guess what? His numbers were basically the exact same he's been putting up for his career.
Yeah, it's like we've been waiting a while for Patrick Williams to take the step that we hoped he did. And we kind of gave him that leeway. Well, when you drafted him, he was 19. He needed time. He was very, very raw. But, a few years have passed since then. And then I'm going to bring this up too, because this all kind of ties into this main question of what the Bulls' goal is here. And we saw them at the trade deadline do absolutely nothing. Zilch. And we heard about consistency and all this stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, technically you're right, because last year we went to the play-in tournament and we lost after winning 1 game and then lost the second game. And then that was it. And it's almost looking like that's exactly what's materializing again. So yes, you are consistent, but you're consistently in the absolute epitomes of hell. You are in purgatory. You're not bad enough to be, get a good pick. You're not good enough to contend for a championship or even be like a respectable like 4 or 5 seed team that can maybe win a playoff series. And so what I don't get is, what is your end game beyond this? Because if there is no end game beyond this, then clearly you don't have a front office that has a high enough bar.
Yeah, that's a good question. What is the end game? I mean, because I can't see many ways for this team to improve significantly unless, and there's a possibility this could happen. Williams takes a Kobe-like jump next year, right? And Zach comes back and plays like he did at the end of last season. So that's one thing I think people do forget a little bit is how good Zach LaVine played last year.
Yes.
From the All-Star break to the end of the season. He was basically a 50-40-90 guy. He was one of the top 7 efficient offensive players in the NBA. He was absolutely phenomenal from the All-Star break on to the end of the season. He played great against the Raptors in the first playing game. Had a disappointing last game, but I would also point out that the Heat had a really good game plan on him. They basically, just basically put Bam anywhere on a straight line drive from him, and there was nowhere for him to go. He's basically doubled in essence the whole game. So that I feel like the Bulls have to bring Zach back so he can at least try to rebuild his value to the point that if you want to get him off the roster, if you still want him to remove, you got to let him play 2 months and have him hopefully approach his career numbers.
You got to rehab his value, so to speak.
Exactly. Because right now, I think he's untradeable without you attaching an asset. And you just can't do that. I agree. So, like, what do I foresee happening? I think they're going to sign DeRozan, hopefully to a 2-year deal, knowing the Bulls. They'll be dumb and sign him to a 3-year deal. Really screw up our cap situation for that year 3 and forgo any advantages that we would have had with Kobe and Io on such a low number. I think they're going to bring Zach back because I don't think they have any other choice. They're hopefully going to find somebody who's decent in that first round with their first round pick. And what else can you really do? I mean, everything else is going to be on the margins. You made this, I guess you're going to lose Drummond. Like, there's really the only hope you have is what you had this year, where Kobe and Io made a step, and then you can hopefully see that from, let's say, Dalen Terry and Williams, a similar step from those players, progress with the young guys. I will point out, as a Bulls historian, that I don't know if you've heard this. I mentioned this on the Big Red Bus, but just bear with me. in 2009, I remember I had a sales job. I was driving around the city, listening to a lot of sports radio. In February of that year, the Bulls were getting blowtorched. And it was like that team had Derrick Rose as a rookie on it, playing at a pretty good level, rookie of the year level. But Noah, up to that point, was a massive disappointment. A lot of people were calling him a bust. So the team was not in good straits. Dang was out for the rest of the year. They were 29-37 on the March 13th. But they made a trade at the trade deadline for Brad Miller and John Salmons, two really good vets who had a massive positive impact on the younger players. And, they finished that season at going 12-4. They finished 500. And then they played the Boston Celtics in an epic 7-game series. And I maintain just getting into the playoffs that year massively improved Noah and Rose. Getting into the playoffs, having that experience, and Noah has said this and admitted it many times, that having that experience of getting into the playoffs really kind of jump-started him, and then it led to great things. And 2 years later, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, obviously, there was a lot that happened in the interim. They had all those great signings with Corver and the whole bench mob thing. And Boozer, but big picture, it can look bad like it is now, and there's no hope. But as long as you get progress from some of these young guys, it could suddenly look a lot better pretty quick. So, like, the whole key is how good is Williams going to be, and how good is Dalen Terry going to be? Dalen Terry has been terrible, but lately he's starting to look a little bit better, I think. So I do have a little bit of hope for him. And I do have hope for Williams, but I think Williams to me is a good role player at his height. He's not going to be a superstar. So you're kind of hoping that Kobe takes another step next year, and Ayo maybe does too. And if you get that, well, then suddenly maybe you do have a team that can approach 50 wins. As far as a title contender, it'll really be hard to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can look at where the Bulls are now, and you can say, all right, you pick kind of the good things, and then there's all these obstacles in the way. And you mentioned Andre Drummond, who I really, really like, but weren't their teams interested in him? Like, you could have gotten value for him.
Yes.
The
rumor is they could have got the rumor is they could have got 2 second-round picks for him. That was the rumor that Philadelphia made that offer. There were a couple other teams out there, and I have no doubt they could have at least got 1 second-round pick. The issue is, like, you need Andre Drummond if you want to be a playoff team.
I was about to say, you talked about, like, losing Andre Drummond. I'm like, who rebounds? Who rebounds on this team?
Well, I mean, that's playing in, like, do you want them to make the playoffs this year or not? I mean, that's the whole thing, is if you're just trying to say, okay, this year's a wash, we're moving on. It's that whole balancing act.
But I would say this year is an important year to make the playoffs. This is not a good draft. And I think the Bulls would be better off getting Kobe and getting Ayo experience playing in the playoffs like it was in 2009. I think that's more important for those two and the younger players than it is for them to sneak into the back of the lottery in a piss poor draft.
Sure.
I'm not really high on this draft at all, unless I love Terrence Shannon. I mean, like, if they could somehow get him, it'd be an absolute steal. I have no idea where he's going to go in the draft, but I think he's going to be a good player, very good potentially. So, but that said, the draft is such a crapshoot. And I don't have a ton of faith in these guys and their talent acquisition and their drafting. I mean, they drafted Ayo, but I was sitting on my couch screaming for them to draft Ayo anyhow, and couldn't believe he fell in the second round. Yeah, exactly. So, every Illinois person I knew was screaming, please draft Ayo. But, the other ones are questionable. I mean, Dalen Terry, there were some really good players at 17 when they took him, and that ended up being so far a massive mistake. So we'll see. I mean, I do feel, I don't know if you guys feel this way. There's a tendency of this town. I'm on with Waddle and Sylvia a lot, and I hear it now. Like, these guys will always blowtorch the Bulls organization. They'll never do it. And I love both of those guys, but they'll never criticize the Bears. Like, what if the Bears won? The Bears haven't won a playoff game since 2011. I love the Bears. I have zero faith in the Bears. None. I have far more faith in the Bulls. I really do. Great. they got number 1 pick, and I'm excited about it too. I love Caleb Williams. I also like Justin Fields a lot. I also felt like he just wasted 2 years of Justin Fields on a really low contract when he could have been competing for something. But, they moved on from that. They traded the number 1, and everybody's like, what an incredible move. Was it? Because you know what? CJ Stroud's pretty freaking good. Like, that was a guy you could have drafted, and you passed on that opportunity. I hope in 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and say, you know what? I'm glad the Bears passed on CJ Stroud to take Caleb Williams. I'm not confident that's going to be how this works out. I mean, I am religious about college football. I thought CJ Stroud was one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. He had a fantastic year in the Big Ten. He played incredible against Georgia. And I thought that should have silenced all doubters. But the people, the NFL and its SEC bias, well, he's an Ohio State quarterback. What kind of insanity is that? And now look at him. He's a fantastic player. So I'm just pointing out, I'm kind of rambling now, but the Bears haven't won anything yet. Like, everybody's saying, like, this is a big success. They still don't have an edge pass rusher outside, on the opposite side. They still don't have a ton of depth. Like, I hope this works out. I don't think it's a sure thing. I understand
it's not
the
a sure
hope
thing.
and stuff. But, like, my goodness, you act like the Bulls are, like, just this tire fire. They have Kobe White. They have Ayo Dosunmu, 2 really good young players that show a ton of promise. I'm about as excited about their future as I am for the Bears. This isn't an easy division for the Bears. But yet everybody's going nuts. It's like, and I kind of understand it to a certain degree. But then again, I don't. I guess that's what I'm saying. Everybody treats the Bears like the redheaded stepchild, like they've done nothing. And I just find it a little bit irritating. I'm sorry to go on a tangent, guys, but I mean, just had to say that.
Where I see the difference is that the NFL, like, it's much more of a larger team effort. With the NBA, it's become, the number of superstars you have, and the Bulls just, they can't draft them and they can't recruit them, so they're having to win, the old give it to college try way, try hard, and the TW, and that only gets you so far when you're competing against these teams that have just 2 and 3 superstars. And I brought up the salary cap before, and the Bulls are in the top 10 in spend this year, but they're closer to being the 30th ranked team in spending than they are to being number 1.
Yeah, I guess the counter to me is like, well, who should they spend on? Like, the NBA's got a salary cap. It's really hard to just spend your way into greatness. If that were true, then you'd see a lot of these teams like the Knicks aren't afraid to spend. There's a lot of the Lakers all throughout the 2010s were terrible for the most part. They weren't afraid to spend. I think it's really hard. You look at the Suns; they're not afraid to spend. They're a seed suddenly. I don't think it's as easy to just. To me, if you look at it, the best way in the NBA to become great is to draft a player who becomes great. It's really hard to predict what's going to be.
Well, you got to spend the money around them. You get that one great person, like the Bucks got Giannis, and then they spent around him. That, I agree with you. That's the way to do it. It's just this team never, like, they're not in the position to get somebody great, and they haven't shown the ability to find that gem later on.
Well, but they did. Like, Jimmy Butler at 30 is arguably the greatest 30th pick, late first rounder in the history of the league.
Oh, I meant this front office, this current.
Oh, this front office, no doubt about it. But they haven't had that many swings yet at home plate. That's good call. I mean, it's just hard. If you look at it in general, the best players are usually picked in the top 10. I understand for every Jokic and every Draymond Green, there's 10 guys like, you look at Paul George, 10 or more, or top 15, with Giannis. If you will go a little bit back, Giannis, I think, was 15. Kawhi Leonard, I believe, was 15. But, Steph Curry, 7. Joel Embiid, top 5. All these, most of the LeBron, 1, right? Most of the really great players in the NBA are picked in the top 10. So it's really hard if you're not picking in the top 10, I think, regularly to find that guy. But I would also counter, like, people like to put a ceiling on Kobe White. I don't know how good he could be. I think he could be really freaking good. Like, I think he could be a multi-year all-star. Nobody expected Jokic to be where he's at. Now, he's obviously a big center, a little bit different. But you look at all these players in the league that end up being great. For the most part, they were drafted. Luka, unless you're in LA or unless you're in Miami, it's really hard to get people to just come up and show up. Also, probably the Knicks too, I'd say, or New York, those three cities. For whatever reason, Chicago isn't just that place. It's just not. I think a lot of it has to do with the weather. It's LA, Miami, New York, and then Golden State drafted Curry. Like, think about it. Most of those cases, Luka was drafted by Dallas, Jokic was drafted by Denver. A lot of these great players, Towns was drafted by Minnesota, were all drafted. So you're right. They're kind of in a rock and a hard place a little bit. Our only hope really is that we get a gem in the mid first round when we're taking these picks, or Kobe really develops into something special. I'm seeing pretty good growth from him. I don't know how you guys feel. It always seems like I'm on the high end of Kobe, and everyone else is, is far less excited about him than I am.
I'm a big Kobe guy. I have a Kobe jersey. I got it the year they drafted him. I've always been a Kobe truther, so seeing him emerge and break out like this has been very, very satisfying to watch. And just as I was an Io truther, and when I say Io truther, I'm not saying a starting superstar in the league, but a legitimate player in the NBA that can play a role and that could, contribute to a team. So, yeah, I'm a big Kobe guy, and I still wear my Kobe White jersey with pride. So, I'm with that.
Can I ask you guys? Go ahead.
Oh, I said,
go ahead, Sean. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem. I've always been a big Kobe guy. I remember arguing with Doug about the potential, and he's like, no, look at the metrics, not going to happen. I'm like, I'm telling you, I think he can I think he can be decent, and
yeah,
and I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, look at the metrics. He averaged 25 points for like 9 games as a rookie right before COVID. He was playing incredible basketball. Then he tears his shoulder in the next offseason, didn't kept him out till December. He's shown signs. Like, he's 8 3-pointers in one game, I think in year 3. He showed consistent signs. He played exceptional basketball down the stretch last year, just like Zach from the All-Star break on. So, like, I've seen consistent signs from him that he can be a good player. I haven't seen that from Patrick as much. And Io has shown to me that he can be a very good two-way player, defensively and offensively. I guess that's kind of like I wanted to get just your take on something, because I kind of been batting this one around. Like, on a scale like 1 to 10, where would you rank the positivity about the Bulls compared to the other teams in this city? So, like, right now, 10 being the most positive, 1 being very negative. I think the Cubs are probably like at a 7. I'd have the Bears probably at a 10. I'd have the Hawks at a 7 just because they got Bedard. I'd have the White Sox at a 2, and I'd have the Bulls at probably a 1. Am I off on those? Where would you guys rank them?
So I think that you got most of those. I think you hit the nail on the head. Though I would be tempted to say the Bears are a little lower depending on who you ask, because I'm kind of in that camp that you are, Fred, where I'm like, listen, I want to believe there's a lot I like about Caleb Williams. Sean and I are going to talk a lot about that, but I mean, we've seen this story over and over and over again. Jay Cutler's going to be the guy. Mitch Trubisky's going to be the guy. Justin Fields is going to be. I mean, we've gone through this over and over. We've fallen for this banana in the tailpipe over and over. But there are people out there that are just like, yeah, let's go. Caleb Williams, we're going to win it. And like you said, too, this division's tough. The Packers still own you, and the Lions are really, really good. So, it's not all set in stone. So I maybe bump that down a little lower. I think Cubs at 6 or 7 is kind of right where I'd put it, because I feel decent, solid about the Cubs, but I'm not like at a 10. The Bulls, yeah, I think the Bulls and White Sox, both teams owned by Jerry Reinsdorf, I put both of them as a 1, because, a lot of my White Sox fan friends, like, they're broken. They don't even want to invest in this season.
Yes. Well, I can't stand the Sox. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm similar here. Like Bears, I'm a little lower. I'm a complete Bears meatball, but I'm probably around a 6.5 right now. Cubs 7 sounds about right. Blackhawks
6.5. Wait, hold on a second. 6.5 for the Bears. Like that is low to me. Like most people, I'm saying most people. I mean, I had the Bears at a 5. That's where I personally at. But I think if you had to judge by most of the people you talk to who are Bears fans, they're at like a 10. The most people I talk to, people are going insane.
I think it's polarizing. I think there's people that just like they stink and they're about a 3, and then there's a lot of 10s. And so it is. I don't see a consensus. There's a big chasm between those folks. It's a black and white. They're either at the bottom or right at the top. This team is ready for a Super Bowl run in 2 years. Cubs, I think, right there. Blackhawks people are high, Bedard, and we're seeing some of the younger players in college and Rockford, and they're looking good, and we know their names and see those coming.
And they got a lot of cap space and draft picks going forward too.
The White Sox, that's like a 0.
Even
the diehard White Sox fans are just like, I don't know what to say. And yeah, the Bulls probably, I'd flip flop Bulls and White Sox, but yeah, they're both at the bottom. The Reinsdorf factor just really hammers it home for most people, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I would counter is I don't think the Bulls should be at a 1. I think they're closer to a 4 or 5, and I'd have the Bears at a 4 or 5. Like, I don't know. There just seems to be this attitude about the Bears that it's some like elite franchise all of a sudden. Like, oh my gosh, they're doing everything so brilliant. Like already they're moving on Arlington Heights, which to me is like the dumbest thing you could possibly do. I'm not a fan. I can't stand going to games on the lakefront and having those 6-hour commutes. It's an absolute joke. Like to me, it's like, why are we so insistent on like, we got to put it on the lakefront? It's crazy to me. It's bizarre, but that's what they're going to do. Even though they bought all this area in Arlington Heights and it's easily accessible from every direction, let's put it on the lake so nobody can get there from the east. It's insane. And I don't know. And it just the absolute people going nuts about all these great moves. Keenan Allen's 32 years old. Like, yeah, that was good. I'm kind of excited, but he's not exactly like a picture of health. And he's a really good receiver when healthy, but I hope he stays healthy. Who's our third receiver? Like it's kind of weird. I really find it weird. Like
I think it's the nature of the NFL. How quickly things can be flipped in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's just my take.
That's true. Yeah, teams can flip pretty quickly, but
I get it. It's the Bears.
It's been 2000 to double doink. It's the Bears. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think they're like this insane, way better than the Bulls in terms of an organization being run. Like, I don't think their coach is better than the Bulls coach. I'm not a huge, fan of everything going on there. So, and I am a Billy Donovan guy. Anyhow, I just wanted to throw that out there because I was curious to get your take on it. So cover all the sports.
I was actually that was my next question to you is, do you think Billy Donovan is the right guy to be leading this team forward?
I feel like I'm almost like on an island. Well, there's a few people. One of the few things that brings me and Mark Kay together, I don't know if you guys know him, the Australian commentator, is our mutual love for Billy Donovan. And maybe it just reflects of how I felt, how much I couldn't stand Boylan, who was, complete embarrassment every time he got in front of the microphone. And this guy, every time I listen to Donovan, I feel good because I know what he's talking about things that I see are wrong with the team, and he's aware of it. He understands that this is what we need to do better. And I think he does a really good job of communicating through the press to me and to the fans. I understand some of the frustrations. Like, I think I don't understand why Drummond doesn't play more. I don't understand his insistence that Vooch is some type of baby Jokic and we should be running the offense through him. And I think he's kind of pivoted on that because I think that's arguably the dumbest idea I've ever heard. But as a coach, I think he's a really good coach. I do. I really believe that. This team defensively is such a disaster in terms of interior defense. We basically haven't had a power forward since he got here outside of Thad Young. who's really elite. Everybody talks about Patrick Williams. He's only been good in the last year. And even then, he's not a good, true power forward. We do have Caruso, who's a plus defender, obviously elite, incredible defender. And this year, Craig has been good. Outside of that, every good player on this team, Zach LaVine, subpar defender, DeMar DeRozan, subpar defender, Vooch, awful interior defender, and you need good interior defense to have a team. Yet we were top 10 in defensive efficiency last year. It's like, I thought he's been kind of a miracle worker with the talent he has. I'm a big believer in starting your defense in the basketball court with good interior defense. I don't think we've had anywhere near that. Who's the best interior defender we've had in the last 2 years? Ask yourself that question. No one can defend the rim. It's really sad. It's really kind of sad. So I'm a big defender of Blake Donovan. I do like him. I think he's a very smart coach. I think he's going to probably take the fall for disappointing year if this happens again. And I think it's a shame because I think he knows what he's doing. But again, I know I'm alone on this.
I talked to an Oklahoma City fan when the Bulls hired Billy Donovan, and I was like, what's your take on Billy Donovan? He's like, absolute great coach, knows basketball, really smart guy. You will love him until you don't love him.
Good quote. Yeah.
And I was like,
I think that's where we're at. I think that's where we're at with them, right? That's a very good apt description.
Yeah, like I liked when he was playing the double bigs with Vooch and Drummond, and then that sort of faded away.
Well, that's because the metric, the defensive rating in that was like some of the worst in the history of the league. Like you can only do that against certain lineups. Like Vooch and Drummond are so slow at getting out on 3-point line. Like you will get destroyed on that. And it was a very good offensive rating, but I think I heard Kevin Anderson, NBC Sports Chicago Masters stats, give me a number like 123 defensive rating, which is just abysmal. Those two just aren't good defenders. I like Drummond more than I like Vooch. Vooch has devolved as a defender. It's like the most under-talked about, under-discussed story, how bad this guy is defensively. And you're starting to see teams just looking for that matchup. You saw it against the Clippers, against the Cavs when they were here. They were just hunting him. Like, hey, who's Vooch on? Okay, let's bring him out to sit the high pick, and now we'll destroy you. Dallas, like, oh my gosh, it's just like it's in. What are you going to do if you're Billy? Like, what's your answer? You don't have any other centers on the roster outside of Drummond, who also is not great. Better but not great defensively. I don't know. I just feel like the issue has not been coaching; it's been more roster construction. And he does have a little bit of Tibbs in them too, where he's like running these guys big minutes, which isn't good. But overall, I'm a fan of him. I do like him, and I think we're going to miss him when he's gone because I don't think there's a lot of great coaches in the NBA. I really don't. I think Bickerstaff sucks for the Cavs. I think he's an awful coach. You got a few good guys for Miami. To me, really, talent wins more often than not. And then, every other coach is pretty much right in the middle. I put Billy in the top 10. What say you? You don't agree?
I don't know what to say. It's hard. They're in a position where it's hard to say, is the coach not getting the best out of his players, or did the front office just do a job of putting team together? And I absolutely know that the front office didn't do a good job, but I don't know to what degree that it's their fault versus Bailey's. And it's hard. I waver on different nights between who I fault more.
Look at the power forwards now on this roster. It's kind of insane. You really got, you got Caruso playing power forward position, or DeRozan, who's not a power forward, really. Your only other option is Tory Craig, who's been hurt a lot. Like, it's kind of crazy to me, like what this guy's been delivered. And I don't know. I hope it gets better. I hope next year we can figure out actually bring in a true power forward that can actually rebound at a high level. And that'd be really good. That's Patrick Williams' biggest problem. He can't rebound. Kind of problematic for a 4.
Alex, is there anything else you wanted to ask Fred, to talk to Fred about?
Well, I think we covered a lot. I guess the one thing that I would ask going forward with this Bulls team is just with Billy Donovan. I mean, I assume that, they signed that extension or whatever that we don't have the details on, but I would assume if they at least make the play-in turn, I mean, really at this point, there's no reason to believe why they would make a change, right? Like he's gonna be here next year. Like we shouldn't have any doubt about that, right?
That's a great question because we know so little about the extension.
Right.
I think he'll be here next year. I think he'll be in. I just can't see the Bulls paying another coach significant money unless he doesn't want to be here. If he's like, I've had it with this. I don't think it's going to get bad enough yet for the Bulls. If the Bulls somehow miss the play-in, which I think is next to impossible. I think it's possible they could fall below the Hawks. They're only a game and a half behind them right now. But they somehow miss the play-in. I think there could be ramifications for that. And it could be anywhere from Acme losing their job to Billy Donovan losing their job. But I think these two are kind of tied now together. So I think they're going to give him another shot next year, see what he does in the offseason. Man, it's going to just be so hard, though. Javon Carter's been such a bust. He's still under contract for $6 million. You're not going to get him off the roster. You have very limited room to do things. And I think they're both going to be back. I'd be shocked if they're not. And you know what? We'll see. I kind of feel like in one way we've been a little bit unfair in ignoring the fact that Zach LaVine's been out a year, Patrick Williams has been out for most of the year. Those are two pretty big injuries to key rotation players. They're starters, right? They started the year. And then the year before was still kind of also a little bit similar. They were still trying to, get things together after Lonzo Ball, kind of expected him to come back and not realizing he would be out for the whole year. I don't know. We'll see, man. But I definitely don't feel terrible about the Bulls because Kobe White and Ayo DeSumo together can form, to me, the best young backcourt 24 and under in the NBA. That's what we got. That's a reason to have hope.
That does put a different perspective and spin on it.
Yeah. So let's get that red Kool-Aid. This is a toast to the beloved Bull. It's not as dark as it's not light either, but it's not as dark as I think we're like. You're right. The Sox are dark, and considering all the crap I put up with as a Southside Cub fan growing up in Oakland, I'm very happy about it.
I'm a Southside Cubs fan that grew up in Worth.
Oh, get the heck out of here! I grew up in Oak Lawn, really close to me. My aunt lives in Worth. I know that
My
area
mom
very
grew up
well.
in Oak Lawn. That's funny.
How you get out of here? Where did you go to Oak Lawn High School?
No, she was a little, I think, north of it. It was the Oak Lawn area. She was 79th and Pulaski, so she went to Bogan.
Oh my gosh, I know that very well. Yeah. Oh my Lord, that's amazing.
I went to Shepherd.
Yeah. Hey, wait, where did Strus go? Did he go there? Max Strus?
I don't know, but I graduated
he went to Shepherd.
I graduated with Kanye.
He went to Shepherd?
He went to Polaris and did all of his activities at Shepherd.
Get out of here. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Man, this is amazing. I gotta start. Do you guys do this incredible trivia every week? I gotta start listening to Swerski Sports more often, man. It's great stuff.
Yes, Kanye's in my yearbook.
You never told me that.
God.
All these episodes and you never wow.
Oh no. So Max Strus went to Stag.
Okay.
In Palos Hills. He went to Stag. I knew it. Yeah. Wow, small world. The Southside Cub fans is always a great contingent.
Yeah, my dad is the big Cubs fan, but he was on the north side, so that's why I'm a Cubs fan. But yeah.
That's awesome. Wow.
Fred, you are more than welcome to stay on and talk to Bears, or I know you said you had a lot of things going on tonight, but
I'm actually got to head out in 2 minutes here. I got my son's basketball practice ends at his AAU team practice at 8:00, so I got to pick him up. But guys, this is awesome. I can't say congrats enough. 500 shows is an awesome accomplishment, and you both, you guys are great dudes. I can't wish you guys enough success going forward too. We got to have you on the Big Red Bus, man.
Yeah, would love.
Can you guys come on our show?
Yeah,
We
for
we
sure.
got to do that. We got to do that. Let's do that. Like a 4, me, Tonus the Podfather, and you two. I think that'd be great.
That
Yeah,
would be
And
awesome.
I'll
I'm
have a
down.
whole. Let's do it. Let's definitely do that. I'll talk to DT and maybe like right before the playoffs. Let's have you guys on.
Yeah,
That'd be
awesome.
great, man.
And
Yeah.
everybody, if you don't follow Fred on Twitter/X, please do so at CBE Fred. Awesome. He also hosts the Big Red Bus podcast, and he's just a rad dude and a very knowledgeable guy. So check him out.
Thanks,
And
guys.
thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Fred.
It's been an honor. Thanks a lot, Sean. Thanks, Alex. Say hi to your brother too, man, for me. Give him my best. He's a
Absolutely.
great dude. Hey, well, last question before I go. Your prediction next year on the Bears total wins.
9.
I'm going to go with 9. I'm going to say 9 and squeak into a wild card.
Oh my gosh. If they finish less than 9, that will be bad. It's going to be really bad.
I say 9, and one of them will be against the Packers.
I'm going to say 8. It's going to be 8, and I think they're going to fire the head coach and look for another excuse. I hope I'm wrong. But they got 4 draft picks and they have so many needs for depth. It's like, I don't know. I hope they can somehow turn 9 into like 12 or whatever and get another second rounder, because there are a load. If those 3 wide receivers go before 9, this is my last thing. I'll jump off because I know you guys got to talk, but I do want to say this. I love Pearsall from Florida. I don't know if you guys seen this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic wideout. You could probably get him in late first, maybe even round 2. Go back, pick him if the big 3 wide receivers are out. But if they're at 9 and one of those big 3 wide receivers are still, well, obviously it won't be Harrison, but when the other 2 are still there, in Doomsday or Roman or
Neighbors.
Neighbors from LSU.
Praying for Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, which was freaking unbelievable. And they trade back. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I would lose my mind. Like, you have to get one of those 2 if they're available. If they're not available, then trade back. Like, I think you got to do that. Or take, left tackle. But man, it's going to be so interesting to see. It's a fascinating draft. It's going to be one that I'm definitely going to watch more than anyone I've ever, as a Bears fan, probably outside of last year. So we'll see, man. I'm looking forward to it. All right, guys. Awesome talking to you, Alex. Sean, congratulations, guys. Talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks, Fred. Thanks again.
All right, thank you. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Yeah, that was awesome having Fred on.
Absolutely.
So where do you want to go from here? Do we go Bears?
Yeah, because there's a few important things we need to discuss with the Bears, and I kind of want to start with this before we get into Caleb Williams, because we know Caleb Williams had his pro day, and there was obviously a lot of buzz around that. But I feel like I want to start with more of the stadium stuff. And I'm not going to say who or where, but I'm getting little birdies chirping in my ear. And there's a lot of speculation right now that the continued public speaking of Kevin Warren regarding the lakefront is a bargaining type of strategy for Arlington Heights. Now, I could be wrong here, and I'm just going off both vibes and some things that I've heard. There's no 100% truth here. I think that it's going to be the lakefront. I really think that is where they are focusing. I think this Arlington Heights thing just is not going to work. And if this is the case, then maybe it's not the best analogy, but I'll give an analogy. It's almost like Arlington Heights was Justin Fields. Is that the predecessor acquired this asset, and the man that is currently in charge has other focuses on elsewhere because he does not think that this previous acquired asset is going to work out. Because we know that there's the separation between the Bears and where these tax breaks were going to be, the property tax. They were very far apart. And frankly, Sean, you can weigh on this too. The longer this went, the further apart this felt, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing other than what's been publicly stated, in my opinion. But when the Bears bought that land, I think Arlington Heights was thought that they had a much stronger leverage than they did, and they were going to try to press the Bears. If they bought that land, that's where they're dead set to go. We're going to twist. And Fred said that there's, all the things that made sense. There's still, I think, a lot of logistic things that would need to be resolved a lot in order to make Arlington Heights fully make sense. The large piece of land that they owned was a huge deal. You can do whatever you wanted on this land, and there's no limitations really on what you can build there. But Arlington Heights really overplayed their hand, and I think it left a really bitter taste in the Bears' mouths, to the point where they went back to Chicago and negotiated, and then suddenly Arlington Heights softened when they realized, oh crap, we overplayed our hand. And I think it's their counter. Their counter was to the media more so than the Bears. Sure. And I think it was a little too late.
Yeah, and I think that I've been very hard on the Bears on a number of things. You've all listened to this show, and I've been kind of publicly critical of, Kevin Warren coming in thinking I thought he'd do better. And, maybe there is still some truth to that. But, the more I'm kind of thinking about this, looking into this, maybe this really isn't like, hey, this is all your fault, Bears. This could be on Arlington Heights too. And just maybe that there isn't a full, complete fault. It's just, you know what? It didn't work. It just flat out didn't work. Now, I could also point at the Bears and say, your predecessor, Ted Phillips, I mean, if you're going to acquire land like that, wouldn't you want to have a more solidified plan in place, or at least, further along on what you think? Because clearly there was an overestimate or underestimate here, I should say. I mean, you kind of bought the land like, okay, let's just get the land, and then once we get the land, then we'll figure it all out. It's like, well,
I agree with you. There would have the only position where the Bears, you got to dive in and get this land before you have your ducks in a row, would be if this was you've got to jump in now or you're not going to be able to get this land. And that really wasn't the situation, because there were other interested parties, but I think the Bears had a good enough relationship with Churchill Downs, who owned the racetrack and the property. I think they had a good enough relationship where they could have said, hey, listen, we're really interested. We want to work with you. We want to be the highest bidders, but we have to make sure that this is going to make sense, and done the due diligence beforehand to figure out the tax rates and what the city was willing to do as far as infrastructure and expanding roads and et cetera. And before you went and bought the land, and I think you still would have had the cachet with Churchill Downs to still be able to hold them off for 6 months to get that stuff into play. But
right,
it doesn't seem like they did. It seemed like they got that cart before the horse.
Right, exactly. And I think it's a shame if this truly doesn't work out. I was very excited about the prospect of Arlington Heights and having the stadium there, and the Bears owning their stadium and having an entertainment district around it. I really, really was. And, now we're going to hear more about how they're going to handle this supposed lakefront plan, and we're going to hear about it in the coming days. I really hope that they can put together something nice because you need to massively upgrade over Soldier Field. And I do feel confident that they will at least build a stadium that you can have covered, that you'll be able to host Final Fours and Super Bowls in and year-round concerts. So you'll be able to utilize it more, but it seems like the plan that we know of is that they're not going to own the whole thing. Maybe they have partial ownership, but it's going to be partially publicly funded. They're willing to put down $2 billion, according to that one report we got a few weeks ago. So, there's going to be a mix here. And kind of just going back to that whole having a plan when you go to the land, there's this whole White Sox debate, with the White Sox in the 78. I'll at least they have a plan. They don't have the land yet. They don't have the funds secured yet. But if they do acquire that land and they do go forward, at least they have a plan of what this stadium is going to be and what it's going to entail. Sure, we don't want to see the state give Jerry all that money. And I do feel like at the end of the day, they're going to find some sort of middle ground there. I think it is going to work out, but you do at least see like there is already a vision. Whereas, okay, they acquired the Arlington Heights land. Okay, where are the renderings? We got them eventually, but it was a very basic layout of what that area would look like. It wasn't as detailed where we got some pretty detailed renderings of this, potential ballpark at the 78 for the White Sox. I mean, this was never going to be a smooth process with a new stadium, regardless of where it was going to be, whether it was the lakefront or it was going to be Arlington Heights. But yeah, it feels like this is truly dead with Arlington Heights. And maybe the 1% chance of it not being dead, they find a way, we'll know for sure. But this to me feels like it's pointing in the other direction. And other media members have other theories and other feelings towards it. But let's just say I've heard some things. It might not be gospel, but I've heard some things.
Yeah, and Fred brought up a point about the infrastructure getting to Soldier Field being a nightmare. And I live in the city and I take public transit when I go, and it's still sucky. Because I take the L to the Roosevelt stop, and then it's a long walk, and that walk you've got a bajillion Bears fans trying to walk on a normal sidewalk, and you can't pass them with anybody without walking into the street. So and then when you do, you got to walk under this long way, under a tunnel, up a hill. The city would be very wise, not just for the Bears, but for the museum campus and tourism, is building some sort of public access, whether that be some sort of tram people mover, that
they're gonna install one of those people movers that they have at O'Hare Airport.
Yeah, but like almost like a monorail type thing, or an extension of the L that allows them, gets people to the Field Museum and the Shed Aquarium and the planetarium and the Bears games, and partner with Metra to make sure that you have the best train options there to get people from the suburbs and Northwest Indiana to the games. Like, yeah, there has to be better things that they do, not just build a awesome building. They have to have the infrastructure, and that would have been the same in Arlington Heights too. I disagree about the ease of getting there. I think the roads are too narrow to accommodate that kind of traffic. It was leaving a horse race, which has a tiny fraction of the number of people as a Bears game, was a nightmare. And I keep bringing it up is, sure, there's a metro stop right there, but like that's not a central. It's not like in the city all of the train lines go into Chicago. Like, none of the train lines go to that Arlington Heights metro stop. It goes from the city out to like Crystal Lake. Like, so anybody from Northwest Indiana or from Joliet or from Naperville, they've got to take two trains. They got to take the train all the way into the city and then catch another train all the way out, and then leaving the game all the way back into the city all the way back out, if they don't want to drive. That is a an issue as well. So there's always logistic things, and you've got to. I'm hoping Kevin Warren is smart enough to see all of the issues, no matter where they go, and try to have a plan in place. That's my hope.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll be curious to see what comes out in the coming days and weeks, and I think we'll have a clearer idea of what's going to happen then. But at this point, it's like just figure this out already.
So we had the pro day for
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams, and at this point, we all know Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams, right? This is no
Yes.
the Bears are not drafting Jaden Daniels. They're not drafting JJ McCarthy. They're not drafting Drake May. Like, they're drafting Caleb Williams, period. And so that's where we are. That's just a factual thing. And did you watch the pro day?
I saw the highlights of it. I saw, I think that one clip of him throwing deep. I saw a few of the kind of the smaller clips of him doing like some play action passes. I saw him warming up on the sidelines, treating Keenan Allen, but I didn't watch it like all the way live, but I saw the main highlights.
Yeah, I didn't watch it live because I don't have ESPN Plus, but when they rebroadcast it on the NFL Network, I watched the whole thing that night, and it was fine. He missed on a few throws, but it was fine. It's not one of those ones, I mean, that blows you away. But he wasn't doing anything to try to blow you away. I think he just wanted to show you how strong his arm was and that he could stand in the pocket, because he didn't roll. He just kind of stood and threw from the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest. Zach Wilson had an exceptional pro day. Exceptional.
Right.
And having a good pro day doesn't mean anything, because there's a lot of guys that have arm talent. That's, you're not getting drafted in the NFL if you don't have arm talent, period. And you're not getting drafted in the first round if you don't have exceptional arm talent. But having good arm talent, that's really what makes drafting a quarterback difficult. Is every other position, we identify these traits that project really well into the NFL, and most of the part they do. But quarterback, there's so much as far as leadership and mental preparation, and that just you can't measure. Like, you can't measure. And I know they do that one, or with the new version of the Wonderlic, and they'd hoped that would help them figure out, are they smart enough to be able to process data and be able to read defenses and understand the plays coming in and process all this information quickly. But it doesn't. I mean, CJ Stroud bombed the test. That was part of that leaked, and that was part of why people thought he was going to drop, because they're like, oh man, he's not smart enough. But then he comes in and he's just really good.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to project based on anything. And so there's a lot of, I mean, honestly, Caleb Williams, it's the tape is what does the talking.
Right. And there's an easy way to quote pass the pro day. Don't show up drunk or out of shape or hungover or have any sort of legal allegations against you. Truly.
Oh, weren't all those the same guy last year?
Yep. I mean, you remember what a big conversation that was with him. I mean, that sent off a lot of red flags with people, and we talked about it many times, and I'll still hammer to this day that Ryan Poles made the right choice with Darnell Wright at that pick.
I agree with you. Is not only that, but he parlayed it into an extra draft pick to make sure that he squeezed something out of there of not picking this guy. And, he got the guy he wanted all along and got a free 4th-round draft pick this year.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I do have a point. I tweeted about it, but these are factual things right now. Justin Fields was traded. He is no longer a Chicago Bears player.
Right.
Regardless of whether you loved him, hated him, whatever, he is on another team. Let's stop talking about him. If you don't like him, swallow it. If you like him, watch some Steelers games and cheer him on in your home. But we're all Chicago Bears fans. We've got to rally around our new quarterback, and because that's the path we're on. We can't change anything. Caleb Williams is going to be our new quarterback. It doesn't matter if you don't like that he paints his fingernails or he has a Hello Kitty phone case. He's our quarterback, and it's time we all put our big boy and big girl pants on and rally around him and root for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
The war between the camps, it's over. It's tiresome, and it's time for reconstruction of the fan base. We should all just save that anger and resentment and put it back where it belongs, aimed directly at the heart of Green Bay.
Well, unfortunately, this division is going to just remain until whenever. I mean, hopefully, if Caleb Williams goes out there and they start winning and he's playing well, that'll put everything to rest. It's just, I get it's hard to move on from a guy that you really liked, but I mean, the fact that you're seeing petitions online now, it's like, come on.
Yeah, it's over. The breakup happened, and am I going to burn my Justin Fields jersey? Absolutely not.
Hell no.
Am I going to be happy for him if he breaks off a 80-yard run in a special play? Absolutely. But you know what? My primary focus is the Chicago Bears, and that's who I want to win. And unless they just bring in absolute dregs of humanity and like a Michael Vick or somebody like that, I'm going to root for whoever the Bears put on the field.
Yeah, me too. And I know we've earlier on this show, we know that we had some doubts about Caleb Williams, and there's still no guarantee here. Absolutely none. We had our concerns about Caleb Williams, and we'll see how he does, but we sure as hell are going to root hard for him because there are traits that we obviously like very much, and we hope that translates. We really, really do. I gotta say, I love his attitude, the way that he's shown. I feel like there's a confidence there, the confidence he showed at the combine, kind of that I don't give a fuck what you think that he's been online with. I like it. I dig it. I really do.
I do as well. He's growing on me. He's growing on me a lot.
He's growing on me too.
And there are a lot of things that he needs to clean up in his game. And I know people keep saying, "Oh, he's a generational talent or a generational prospect." I don't know if I agree. And I remember Andrew Luck was a guy that was just like, that's it. That's the dude right there. Even when Peyton Manning came out, there was a lot of front office people that genuinely thought Ryan Leaf was going to be the dude.
Mm-hmm.
And there was not a consensus there. And Joe Burrow, I think, was a consensus number one. But so I would say Caleb Williams is a consensus number one, but I don't know if you'd put him in the category of, well, everybody just like like LeBron James when you knew years in advance. All right, when he turns 18, he's going to be the number one draft pick when he's like 15, 16 years old and just keep solidifying. You knew that. And Andrew Luck was everybody just knew it's Caleb Williams is very good. And I think at this point, I don't know who would not choose him at number one. What team wouldn't? That has the opportunity to trade with the Bears, but I just there's still flaws in his game that he's going to have to work on, and one of them is one that Justin Fields struggled with is fumbling. There are things he's going to have to work on, and that's with any quarterback. But I could tell you what is this quarterback class is significantly better than last year's, and it's going to be significantly better than next year's. Next year's might be a dog turd tacos draft class for quarterbacks.
Right.
But let's see. I know the Bears have 4 picks in this draft currently. I disagree with Fred, what he said about that's not enough. Is we saw what Ryan Poles was doing in free agency. He was plugging some holes with short-term contracts. He added a new swing tackle. He added a couple of new interior offensive linemen. He added Keenan Allen. He added a couple edge rushers. So he basically put bodies into these spots where if we can't upgrade in the draft, we've got competition for those spots. And I think where they are, that's probably the best they can do. And I think the 3 spots that just absolutely need to be improved on is quarterback, because you can't go in the season with Tyson Bagent and Mark Rippon as your quarterbacks. So that's your first pick. You've got this number 9, and then you've got a 3rd and 4th rounder.
Mm-hmm.
The number 9 pick is the intriguing one. I know people are like, well, you trade back, and
yeah, I don't think you do that until you know who's on the board at number 9.
Yes, because if I'm as much as I would love to have Jared Verse on the other side of Montez Sweat, I think if you were able to get Jared Verse, you would have the potential to have the number 1 defense in the NFL. But I think it's really hard, especially with DJ Moore's got a contract that's due soon. Keenan Williams is on a 1-year deal. You are one high ankle sprain away from Tyler Scott being your number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah.
And I don't think you want to be there. So
No.
I think if Malik Neighbors, I don't see any realistic scenario where Marvin Harrison Jr. falls to 9.
No, I don't either. Yeah, that seems next to impossible.
I mean, do I see a scenario where he's not the first wide receiver drafted? Yes, because I think there are teams that legitimately had this very, very similar grade on Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think the fact that Marvin Harrison didn't do the combine, didn't do a pro day, might make them flip-flop those two. But I don't think anybody is going to drop him, more than a fraction of a step on their draft charts. So he's either first or second wide receiver taken. I would say 90% the first, but he's not falling to 9. So it's between Neighbors and Rome Odunze. And if either one of those guys is there, you sprint to the podium and you make that pick.
Yeah, I agree.
The value trading back from the number 9 pick, don't know exactly, who you're going to trade with to get a premium and, move back enough to get you a second round pick. Because if you could get a pick in the 33 to 38 range and still get an edge rusher in the first, that would be the dream scenario. But I don't know if you can really do that. Is in order to get, you would have to drop to like pick 17 or so to recoup a second rounder, a high second rounder. Unless a quarterback falls. And then you get a bidding war between the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Vikings. And, maybe the dream scenario is that the Vikings get so desperate to get to the Bears spot that they have to pay the Bears the division tax, and the Bears finagle both of those number 1 picks to move up 2 spots.
No, anything can happen, right?
I mean,
not
honestly,
saying it will, but
I mean, if the first 3 picks are quarterbacks, and there's going to be teams that just get desperate. I mean, the Vikings, are you really willing to go the whole season with Sam Darnold?
I mean, I don't know what the next year's draft looks like in terms of quarterbacks.
Bad.
The one way I could, yeah, I know there hasn't been much conversation about it because there's not much to it, but, I think about the Vikings a lot because they're going to need a quarterback no matter what. And there's a lot of speculation around JJ McCarthy, but are they really going to do that? I could see it. I really, really could, but I don't know. And I mean, to me right now, if you would have told me the first 3 picks are quarterbacks, I'd say, yeah, I'm not surprised. Would you be?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
I mean, honestly, the Bears pick is solidified. I'm assuming the Washington team is going to draft a quarterback. Whether or not it's going to be Drake May or Jaden Daniels, but I'm assuming they will. That then the whole draft starts pivoting then with the Patriots, because the Patriots are dumpster fire. They need a quarterback, but it's also a situation where if you draft a quarterback, are you setting them up for failure because like you don't have any weapons and you've got just a terrible team around them? You might be better served trying to trade back and getting a haul and then trying to build up a team for a future quarterback and just ride with Jacoby Brissett next year.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you could go if you're the Patriots.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think Washington is in at least a good enough spot where they could bring in a young quarterback and feel like they can go.
I would be floored if they didn't draft a quarterback. Truly.
Yeah, it's either who do they like better, May or Daniels? That's
right,
the question.
Right.
But I if I were the Patriots, I wouldn't want to draft one of those quarterbacks and unless you just fell in love with them. And you were like, hey, the guy we loved fell to us, then sure, go for it. But otherwise, I would not want to set up a young quarterback for failure like that.
Right. I mean, and one thing too, looking forward to the draft is there's always going to be something unexpected within at least the first 5 picks, right? I mean, isn't that typically what we see? No doubt, at least. I mean, it never truly goes exactly how people expect it. And people make all sorts of different draft scenarios, but there's always something that goes along in there. We see guys fall, we see trades, and that, changes the whole order of everything, because usually when somebody's trading up that high within that high of a pick, it's because they want somebody very specific, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's typically why that happens.
And honestly, the Bears need a few things to happen to break their way. And and there's just like there's so many wild card teams in there. Patriots right away, number 3, wild card. There's a lot of ways they could go. The Chargers at number 5. They Jim Harbaugh's their new main dude. Is he going to try to build the trenches and be able to pound the ball? If so, maybe they go after Joe Alt, and right off the bat, then that's good for the Bears. But they also have no wide receivers, and they could go one of the receivers. The Giants, another one. If you told me they went quarterback, wide receiver, or offensive lineman, I would not be shocked.
Same.
I'm assuming Joe Alt does not fall past 7, because that just screams Tennessee Titans. And if they don't, then I'm going to guess that they pick like Olu Fashanu, or Talisi Fuaga from Oregon State. I think they go tackle. But Atlanta, then they could use an edge rusher, they could use a cornerback, they could use you could always add another wide receiver there. There's a lot of places they go. So there's just so many twists and turns. But if the Bears are where we think they are, they want one of those top 3 wide receivers to fall. And to make that happen, you need 4 quarterbacks and Joe Alt and a defensive player to go before the Bears pick.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that happens.
Yeah, I don't either.
The worst case scenario is that all of the quarterbacks that people want are gone, and that the quarterback teams have traded up ahead of them. The wide receivers are gone, so you can't trade back because the quarterbacks are gone, and you're stuck drafting at 9. And I've modified my stance. I've always been like best player available, and I've sort of modified it to best player available to give you the highest margin of return. And what I mean by that is, like, if Joe Alt is there or Olu Fashanu, they're really good. But how much better are they than Braxton Jones? Whereas if you were to get Rome Odunze, the difference between him and Tyler Scott is really big.
Yes.
And so you have to gauge that is what's the level of upgrade you get, the bang for your buck. And that's why I'm hesitant. I'm not going to hate if they get an offensive lineman, because you want to protect Caleb Williams. But
no, I wouldn't either.
But I think Braxton Jones is primed for a breakout year this year, and I just don't see the margin of improvement over a couple of other positions.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think what else the Bears could do, because they're not going to take a defensive back.
Not going to take a tight end.
No. I mean, could they take that defensive tackle from Illinois? John Newton?
Maybe.
I mean, I've heard comparisons to Aaron Donald. But he's
I watched him. He's a great player. I just,
is my concern is, again, is he that much of an improvement over Javon Dexter? Because we saw that guy starting to look good.
Yeah, towards the end of the season, he was really showing some promise.
Yeah. But I think the Bears in this draft have to walk away with quarterback, an edge rusher, and a wide receiver. early on. I think that just has to be the case.
I agree.
And, I know they only have 4 picks this year, but I would rather just suck it up and take our 4 picks. I would rather have the best player that we wanted at 9 than trading back and having to settle on a different player to get a second or late second or an early third round draft pick. Because we have 10 draft picks next year. This is just a rough year, and I think you just got to get the best number of players you can and make all 4 of these work.
Yeah. I mean, if you are going in and you take just 4 players, if that ends up being what you do and you don't trade any of those picks, the pressure is definitely on for those to work. You don't have the margin of error like you would if you had at least to pick every round.
Yeah, I mean, if you pick Caleb Williams and let's go Jared Verse, and you win offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, and you have that Houston Texans turnaround level of turnaround, is anybody going to remember that you only had 4 picks that year?
No.
I think if you hit a home run on your number 1 and your number 9 picks, nobody will remember anything else that you only had 4 picks.
Right. That's true. That is true.
And then the last thing I had about the Bears, I guess 2 more things. One is, did you see Ryan Poles on Pat McAfee?
I heard snippets of it.
I appreciate that Ryan Poles showing signs of frustration of the comments that were made about him.
I do too.
And I appreciate that he recognizes and the organization recognizes that there was a bad cycle that needs to be broken and that his job is to break it. The first step into fixing a problem is recognizing there's a problem.
Yeah, I absolutely. And you know what? I will respect the fact that Ryan Poles has we know him. We know his personality. We know what he's like. We know what kind of charisma he has. And listen, all that truly matters at the end of the day is winning football games, but those were all things we did not have with Ryan Pace. He was just the front office guy that worked behind the scenes, and you'd hear from him maybe once a year or twice a year.
Yeah.
Again, that doesn't translate to wins, but it's nice to see.
I can see why George fell in love with Ryan Poles.
I can too. I mean, he went and picked him up at the airport in his Bears sneakers and coat.
That's still hilarious.
I still like to think that George was driving like one of those old cartoon cars with like the awooga type horns.
He's got a bear head in the front of his car.
Painted orange.
It's painted to look like the guy that wears the bear costume in the games.
Yeah. Oh man.
Human head with a bear head on top of it.
I could totally see it.
And the other thing is the new rules.
Yeah. New kickoff rules, new tackle rules.
I find it hilarious that Cordero Patterson did not have a job and didn't look like he was going to get hired. And then the new kickoff rule came into place, and suddenly he signs a contract that day.
I wish I know the Bears weren't bringing him back, but I still kind of miss that dude.
I miss him too. And I think, I'm hoping that these new kickoff rules make Velus Jones a threat.
I agree. And honestly, just going back to Cordell Patterson for a second, I really think that outside of Devin Hester, he's the best return special teams player we've had in a very long time.
Yeah, he's great. And I'm excited about the new kickoff rule because I know there's a lot of people that hate it, and I think it's a fair compromise. I have hated the procedural kickoff where 95% of them just go in the end zone, you take the touchback. And I recognize that the previous way of doing it caused a lot of unnecessary collisions. I recognize that. So I'm hoping this is some sort of fair compromise that allows, a team to really make special teams a priority and do good things with it with minimal risk to player safety.
Yeah, agreed.
And then the hip drop tackle, I recognize why they want to get rid of it. But boy, are we in for the refs just making terrible calls?
Yes, we are. It's going to be very ugly to start.
I just feel like this is the new was it a catch?
Yep.
This is going to highlight again how poor the NFL officiating is.
Yep. And remember this too. Remember how many controversial calls and non-calls we've had, especially in the first year when they cracked down on hitting the quarterback. I mean, we still see a lot of it.
Yeah, this is going to be such a nightmare for fans trying to get good officiating. And I'm fine with them banning the hip drop tackle, but the definition of what's a hip drop tackle is, what if you're tackling a guy and he makes a turn and it looks and you both fall down at the same time. You're like, oh, that hip drop flag. Like, what's the penalty for it? Is it 15 yards?
I believe so.
Man,
that's a big penalty. They couldn't at least make it like 5 or 10. Like that's see, and that the Bears are going to lose a game because of that.
Yeah.
You know darn well that that's going to happen.
Yep, because it's going to be there's the NFL has way too many penalties in place that are opinion based.
Yep.
Hip drop tackle is, the horse collar.
That makes sense.
That's pretty clear. Like that one's pretty clear. The hip drop, I think you're going to be, it's too vague, and it's going to be opinion based. Pass interference, opinion based. When there was taunting still, opinion based. Roughing the passer, opinion based. Late hit, unnecessary roughness, opinion based. Too many rules are opinion based for a league that does not have designated officials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I can already see big game, Bears are playing, and that's going to cost them. And the Bears play with the hits principle and yada yada yada. It just
Yep. But do you want to wrap up episode 500 with a little baseball talk?
Yeah, because the season starts this week.
Yep. And I don't think we've got a finalized opening day roster for the White Sox yet.
No, I mean, we have kind of the general idea, whereas with the Cubs, we know what the roster is now. But with the White Sox, we know that your starting pitcher is going to be Garrett Crochet, so we know that much.
Garrett Crochet has some really good stuff. I just don't know if it's going to translate into being a starter.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I'm not doubting his abilities to pitch, but he's had injury issues going back to college. We saw that he missed all this time. Didn't he miss all of 2022 and then pitched a little bit last year? And he's never been a starter in this league, so I'm not saying he can't be effective when he pitches, but I mean, what is he going to go 3 innings, 4 innings?
Yeah, I don't know. Like he's got some great stuff.
He does.
It just seems to me he's a bullpen guy, but you know what? That's where they're going, and I'm gonna hope for the best for him. But after him, I believe it's gonna be Michael Soroka, Eric Fetty, Chris Flexen, and Nick Nastrini as your rotation.
Yeah, because Dylan Cease is gone, and
and they optioned Tuki Toussaint.
Yep, they optioned him, and Michael Kopech's in your bullpen.
Yep. It's tough to see a path for this team to not lose 95 plus games.
And I've been kind of racking my brain on what exactly this is going to look like because, yeah, the starting rotation does not look like a strong point, and even the bullpen, you have a few guys in there, but like Jonathan Brebbia is a veteran guy, solid pitcher there. We'll see what Michael Kopech does in the bullpen, how he adjusts to that role. I think that there's potential there for him to thrive with the stuff that he has and not having that pressure of going all those innings. But you don't have a closer right now. And that is something that's important to a team. And you might just continue to roll with this closer by committee type, or you go and you see who pitches well in what situations, and the closer just kind of materializes because that's what you see on a lot of teams. But the one thing that I look at the White Sox and say this is, okay, some of those prospects you have acquired are slated to be part of the team at some point in 2024. That could even include Colson Montgomery, your number one prospect, and the one of those pitchers you got for Dylan Cease from the Padres. He's almost a finished product. He could be up this year. So obviously that's something to keep an eye on. And the lineup itself and the defense. Defense is better than last year, right? I mean, we can agree with that.
It's hard to be worse, but yeah.
It is.
It's better.
It's better up the middle with Nicky Lopez and Paul DeYoung. It's probably better behind the plate because you did bring in Martin Maldonado, who I think is on his last leg, but again, better than what you had.
Stassi's injured.
Yeah, which he's a defensive catcher when he comes back. That's obviously important. But let's look again at the lineup. I think Luis Robert is a stud.
I think the heart of your order has the potential to be really good.
Yeah.
It's the top of the order, the bottom of the order. Are they going to pitch in enough to overcome the severe lack of pitching you have?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, I have one big question. Is Yoan Moncada going to be healthy? And if he is healthy, is he going to play well? Because I think he can. I mean, we've seen flashes of him being good when he's healthy. He had a great 2019 and he had a really good 2021. The last 2 years have been injury riddled and he just hasn't been good. So I could see him having a good year this year. I really, really could. And I think Andrew Vaughn is a solid player. Do I think he's a massive superstar like they drafted him? No, but I think he's a good player, a good hitter, I should say. Not really a good defender, but a good hitter. He can hit 20 homers, drive in runs. So I think he's going to produce solidly there. We want to say it every year, but with Eloy Jimenez, every year, this is the year he breaks out, 30 plus homers, maybe 40 homers. He's never healthy.
Yep.
He's never healthy.
It's wild. You
I
move
don't
him
know.
to DH and he still gets injured.
Right. He got injured in spring. He had a bruise on his foot on a foul ball that he had to miss games. He's never healthy. And until he actually shows he can stay on the field, at this point, I have trouble counting on him playing more than 80, 90 games a year.
Yeah. He has the potential to be very good. It's just really tough to project him for more than 120 games.
Right. And even 120 seems somewhat generous.
Yeah. So your outfield, Benintendi, Luis Robert, and Dominic Fletcher.
Dominic Fletcher's kind of intriguing to me.
I mean, it's he's good defensively. He's high confidence guy, but woof, he did not play well offensively in spring training. Yeah,
No.
he hit a home run the other day, but um, you know, they did bring Kevin Pillar back.
Yeah, they released him and then they brought him back within like 24 hours.
Yeah,
And he's kind of that veteran leader defensive guy. I really like Kevin Pillar, but he hasn't really been a positive offensive outcome player in a few years, but you're getting good defense. Again, your defense is much improved and you're getting a good leader, a good veteran, experienced guy, so that's something. No more Mike Moustakas, which isn't surprising.
right. So, yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for the White Sox, but this team just does not look very good. Even in a bad division, this team does not look very good.
Yeah, that division is so bad. Like who's like the Twins are probably the favorite, right?
I would say so.
And like even they're like, okay, you got some dudes, but you're not a great team, right? I mean, they finally won a playoff series last year for the first time in like 20 years, but um, you know, there is maybe have a little bit of a dark horse in Detroit, but
I
things
mean,
got to go right in Detroit.
is based on predictions. Uh, the the Twins have uh the highest projection to win the division, and followed by actually Cleveland.
Yeah, I was going to add Cleveland in there. That team is going to come in be fundamentally sound. I mean, they find ways to win.
Yeah, the Tigers then they're just a fraction of a percent behind Cleveland. Then the Royals are not too much farther behind, and then the White Sox just coming up the rear.
Maybe this is a hot take, but I think there are people that are higher on the Royals than I think they should be. I still think the Royals are going to lose like 90 plus games. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, oh, they added Michael Waka and Hunter Renfroe. I'm like, yeah, maybe like 3-4 years ago that would look better, but I don't know. Bobby
Here,
Witt Jr. is a stud. I'll give him that.
here's the BetMGM odds for the division winner. Is Minnesota is minus 125, so they're the runaway favorites. Detroit and Cleveland are essentially neck and neck, plus 350 and plus 375, essentially a wash. Kansas City a plus 900, so they do not believe in Kansas City. And then the White Sox plus 5,000.
Not the best odds.
Yeah. So, and Pacoda has the White Sox finishing at with 96 losses.
So 96 is kind of the over under.
Yeah. And Fangraphs is Fangraphs is actually 95.6 and Pacoda is 96.3, but so basically 96 losses.
Yep.
And BetMGM the over at 60 and a half wins.
Yeah.
So the odds makers do not believe in the White Sox.
I mean, it's hard to when you come off 100 losses and you trade away some guys.
Yeah. So we have the Cubs official roster, and any major surprises for you?
No.
Yeah, me either. I mean, is Mastroboni going to be your DH?
I mean, I think it's going to depend on the day.
I was hoping one of the young players would win the DH job, but I don't think there's any major surprises. Justin Steele looks like he's still on track to be the opening day starter, from what I read.
Yeah, I mean, he took that liner off the foot, but he seems okay.
Yeah, I was a little worried. I'll be honest with you. And my worry, I'll be honest with you, my worry is not 100% subsided. If he gets 12 strikeouts and a win on opening day, they'll be subsided.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You always worry though. I mean, Craig Counsell doesn't seem worried, but naturally you do.
So what do you think that MGM has as the odds of in the NL Central?
Just because, I mean, I feel like they're probably favoring the Cardinals, aren't they?
They are. Plus 175.
Mm-hmm.
The Cubs are almost neck and neck with them at plus 190. Then Cincinnati plus 350, Milwaukee plus 750, and Pittsburgh plus 1300. The over-under is the BetMGM over-under is 84.5 for both the Cardinals and the Cubs. And Pacoda has the Cubs with 81 wins. And Fangraphs has them with 82 wins. Fangraphs has the Cardinals at 84 wins, and Pacoda has them at 84 wins. I only see this because the Cardinals have some sort of voodoo magic.
Right. It's like they had such a bad year last year that you feel like the scales are going to tip again.
Yeah, but on paper, I don't see them how they're going to be that good.
Well, it's the pitching, I think, for me, that I just don't. The pitching, I feel like, is the big weakness, especially
Yeah.
now that they have some injuries.
Yeah. I mean, isn't Miklos going to be the opening day starter?
Yes, he is.
That's not a championship pitcher to throw out their opening day.
Right.
One last thing I wanted to do before we wrap up episode 500 here is I know we talked a tiny bit about this before, but as far as individual baseball records, like career records go, what are the big milestones, the big 3 milestones?
Run that by me again.
So for individual baseball career records, what are the 3 big milestones? Yeah. So 500 home runs,
3,000 strikeouts.
3,000 hits, and 300 wins. And
I mean, are you saying that now or over the course of baseball history?
just those are really like kind of gold standard Hall of Fame like thresholds.
Well, the only
3,000
reason,
hits.
right? But the only reason I asked that is because I don't think we're going to see a 300 winner again.
That's what I'm getting to for all 3 of these is, do you know who the active hits leader is in baseball?
Right, active. Because Miguel Cabrera retired.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Pujols obviously retired. It's not Mike Trout. It's not Aaron Judge. Who is it? Give me a hint.
in the Cubs division.
Oh, Joey Votto?
Yeah. Yep. And I don't know if he's going to be playing in the major leagues this year. So after him, and he's only at 21 and change. So
Right.
he's 40.
Right.
He's not going to get 3,000. Freddie Freeman then is next. He is 34 years old and he has 2,115 hits. That's a long way to go to get to 3,000. Andrew McCutchen is next. He's 37 and has 2,048. He's not going to get it. Jose Altuve is 2,047. He's 34. Paul Goldschmidt is next at 1,909, and he's 36. Manny Machado is only at 1,738, and he's 31. DJ LeMahieu is 35 and has 1,697. Charlie Blackmon is 37 and has 1,690. Nolan Arenado is 33 with 1,669. Carlos Santana is 38 with 1,665. JD Martinez is 36 with 1,639. Mike Trout has 1,624 and he's 32. Who is the leader, the current active leader that's under age 30 in hits? That would be Carlos Correa. He's 29 and has 1,051.
And he hits for a high average every year.
Yeah. And then Andrew Benintendi is the next highest under 30, and he's at 925. Is there anybody on this list that's under 20 or under 26? Juan Soto is he's 25 and he's got 768. 3,000 is going to be real tough to get to. And then even worse than that is wins. Justin Verlander has stated that he wants to do it. And he said he wants to be the last 300 winner ever. And he's at 257 and he's 41. I think there's a chance he could do it, but he's going to have to put in this year. He's going to have to win 20 games, I think, to make that happen.
Yeah. And that's going to be tough
because, you could be like, oh, well, if he averages, let's see, do some math. If he averages, he plays 3 more seasons and gets 15 wins per season. Do you know how many 42 and 43-year-olds and 44-year-olds win 15 games?
Not a lot. And I mean, I barely even pay attention to it now. It's such an obsolete stat.
Bartolo Colon, I think, is the last one to do it. There's not a lot of guys that do that. And then next on the list is Max Scherzer. He's 39. He's got 214. I don't think he can get to it. Clayton Kershaw is 36. He's at 210. No chance. Do you know who the career wins leader under the age of 30 is?
Under the age of 30?
Yes.
I want to say, shit, I pay no attention to win-loss record. Under the age of 30. Is Garrett Cole over 30? Yeah, he's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is. Under the, because like there's so many guys I want to say, but like no, they're over 30 now.
I will tell you, it is German Marquez.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even guessed that.
And then next on that list of wins leaders under 30, Lucas Giolito.
Wow.
And Lucas Giolito has 61 wins, and he's 29. And so, I mean, if Verlander does get the 300 wins, I don't know if we ever see that ever again.
I would not be surprised if we don't, unless they change the qualification of a win.
Fair.
I don't know if they would, but.
And then home run leaders. Do you know who the active career home run leader is?
Well, again, Bulls retired. Miguel Cabrera retired. Is it Stanton?
It is Stanton, Giancarlo Stanton.
And think about it too. How much time he's been hurt? Imagine if he wasn't.
Oh, I know. Like that dude would be a shoo-in for 500 if he was healthy.
Easily.
Next is Mike Trout at 368. Then Paul Goldschmidt at 340. Nolan Arenado at 325. Like Stanton is like I don't know who on this list is going to get it. Stanton's going to fall off a cliff at some point, and he's still got to get 100. Mike Trout is trending the wrong way. Paul Goldschmidt is at the end of his rope, and he's got 160 home runs left.
Yeah.
Manny Machado has 314. He's 31. Harper's 31. He's 306. Aaron Judge is only 257. He's 32. Who's the active career home run leader under the age of 30? I can give you a hint if you
Juan
want.
Soto?
Nope.
Shohei? No, not Shohei. I feel like I should know this. Bryce Harper's over 30.
I'll give you a hint. He's going to be the Cubs' first baseman next year.
Oh, Pete Alonso.
Yep. Pete Alonso, and then followed by under 30. Then Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger is the number 2 leading active career home runner hitter under 30.
See, and that's what's amazing is because you're asking these questions, and when you like for the longest time, when you would ask, "Oh, who's the offensive leader? This, and this," you would often point to guys like Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols, and even go back to like when Adrian Beltre was still playing, or when you go back a little more when you had like guys like Lance Berkman playing, and when you had hey, Alfonso Soriano, a endless number of guys, Derek Jeter, A-Rod, Mark Teixeira, just all those guys are gone now.
Yeah. When Miguel Cabrera walked away, like that might be the last 3,000 hitter we see, for a long time.
Yeah, could be. Could be.
I know Bryce Harper has talked about he would love to play into his mid-40s.
A great goal to have. Good for you. Honestly.
That's the only way he's going to get to 500 home runs. is longevity. Because nobody's, the very few guys are hitting him at the clip enough. I mean, Stanton, if he's healthy, Judge, if he's healthy. If Judge is healthy and puts 50 home runs up for the next couple of years, that's going to catapult him into that. But
talent-wise, he's capable of doing.
Yeah. So it's just wild, like these historic numbers that we kind of put like, oh yeah, these are Cooperstown type career numbers, and we're gonna have a whole generation of new players inducted into the Hall of Fame that their career numbers pale in comparison to the guys that are there. And it's not that they're not good players. It's just the game of baseball has kind of changed.
Hey, we got some breaking news.
Ooh, breaking news.
Ian Happ will be leading off on opening day.
Okay. Are you
I get
surprised by
it.
that? Are you surprised by that?
No. On base, Craig Counsell, that's what he likes. You know, he values certain things, and the quote is, getting on base for guys like Seiya and Cody is a great recipe for scoring runs for us.
Oh, Jordan Montgomery signing with Arizona.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. 1-year deal, $25 million with a vesting option.
I feel like the Cubs could have done that.
I know, me too, but they drew a hard line in the sand with their luxury tax, and they want to be able to add at the deadline. So, is what it is, I guess. I am a little annoyed, not going to lie, but that's that. But at least now, it's all over. Everyone of note is in place. Matt
Yeah.
Chapman signed, Cody Bellinger was signed with the Cubs, Jordan Montgomery signed with the Diamondbacks, and you have Blake Snell signing with the Giants. Boy, that division, the NL West, aren't you glad the Cubs aren't in that division?
Yeah, that division's going to be real good.
The Dodgers are great. I don't think we're gonna have time tonight, but I will just say quickly, this Shohei Ohtani story is wild, and if that guy really did just have access to his account and wire $4 million for gambling debts, pick some better friends, Shohei, because yikes.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it, but there's two quick things I wanted to say is one is the fact that the wire came from Shohei Ohtani's account triggered this to be a federal investigation. Baseball can't sweep this under the rug.
No, this has to be looked into. And you know what? Shohei Ohtani, he could be just telling the truth here and saying, you know what? I entrusted him with what I had, and he took advantage of me and stole from me. I mean, that very well is what could happen. It seems wild because I asked, like, hey, how do you have access to this account? And I get it. Athletes have other people managing financials, but you really gave your interpreter your account information, which, okay, maybe you did. Maybe you did. But if you're making a multi-million-dollar transfer, doesn't the bank,
Yeah, doesn't somebody question this?
like, hey, like, have all the proper parties approved of this transaction, including the man himself?
And then did you see Pete Rose's comment?
Yeah, I did.
I just have a question. If they find out, and I've heard rumors, again, is what's being said publicly is CYA, because the story's kind of changed and they're trying to distance Shohei Ohtani from this. And maybe he didn't do anything wrong. I will wait to see the results. But I've heard rumors that there were bet on games that Shohei Ohtani pitched.
Yeah, and I mean,
There'll be records. And if that's the case, is MLB, it's one thing to ban Pete Rose, when he's at this point now, only old people are caping for Pete Rose. We're all old. But the face of baseball, the best player in baseball,
in his prime.
What are you going to do if he bet on baseball?
Right.
Is Rob Manfred, is he willing to do what baseball said and ban him?
It'd be really tough to do if you're in that position as the commissioner, unless all of a sudden he's dethroned. Rob Manfred is, by the ghost of Judge Landis.
Yeah, It's going to be interesting, and I'm holding judgment until I read the full report. But
Same.
it doesn't look, no matter what the upshot is, it doesn't look good.
Well, yeah, and personally, without any evidence, I kind of feel like Shohei Ohtani wasn't the one betting. Like the theory that he was betting is the one I believe the least. Again, I'll wait for the info to come out, but that's the one I'm kind of believing the least on. I mean, the two things that I can kind of see are one, exactly what Ohtani said. He had access to the account, whether it was he was given it to by him directly or he found out and there were other people conspiring with him, and that he was able to wire this money in Shohei's name behind Shohei's back. That's one possibility. The other that I do wonder about is here's this guy with these gambling debts, this translator, and Shohei Ohtani wants to do him a solid and allows him to transfer money from his account and saying, hey, if you need money, I got money. I'll help you out with good intentions, no illegal bad intentions whatsoever. And then this translator came in, transferred a big sum of money, and then Shohei and his party found out and they're like, oh shit. But we'll see.
Dan Bernstein brought up a good point. Let's say that it was the translator. What's that dude's salary? Ballpark. I mean, he probably is getting paid pretty well. Let's go $250,000 a year. Is that a fair guess?
Yeah, sure, maybe a little more. I honestly don't know, but
yeah, but it'll be in the right ballpark.
Sure. You're not making $10 million,
Yeah. Okay, so let's say just for ease, he's making $250,000 a year. What bookie or gambling facility is fronting a guy that's making $250,000 $4 million in credit in bets?
That's a good question.
That's the question then is they will cut you off. They just, why are they going to risk if you don't have a guarantor? And, a Shohei Ohtani, yeah, that's a good guarantee because you see the contract that he signed. Oh, okay, this guy's good for $4 million. But the translator, so it's gonna be really interesting, and I wonder how long it'll take. But it's not a good look for Shohei. The fact that the story changed, and I'm glad that this is being looked at federally because I think MLB, if the investigation was just with them, this would get swept under the rug really quick.
Yes, I agree.
I just want the investigation to be done properly so we find the correct upshot here.
And I don't want to sit here and actively root for Shohei to get in trouble or that he did anything wrong. I think there's a lot of jealous people, the Dodgers out there, that want to see him. For the sake of humanity, I don't want to see that happen, but you also don't want to see stuff get covered up either,
Right. I mean, for the integrity of the game, is you've got to make sure that this gets squashed. That that we know that no player is actively betting on baseball, and we're ruling that out.
But I am going to bring this up again. I've brought this up many, many times. I want to look at sports entities. Mm-hmm. You are in bed now and doing business with gambling.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Part of me is like, you made your bed, now sleep in it.
But I'm going to go one step further. Not only are you in bed with gambling, you have allowed Las Vegas to have professional teams.
Yes. So that's on you.
So you've, they have to have very clear rules. All of the sports. I mean, I think it's much less so in hockey, but all these sports, they need to draw clear lines on what is allowed, what isn't, and the punishments that are associated with them, and regulate that. Because if people are like, why can't a NFL player bet on basketball? I could tell you why. Is what if you get into debt? And the way you spin that is okay, well, let me give you my sport information. Let me give you, and then suddenly you have an insider. Either at best case scenario, you get insider information on things that could change the way you would bet. And worst case scenario is, oh, I missed the tackle, or oh, I missed the kick. Now that we didn't cover, we won, but I didn't cover. And those are the things you just cannot have. So you don't let people gamble, period.
Mm-hmm.
And the lines I don't think are clearly identified. NFL has said that they are. Like, you get punished for doing this, but I don't think everybody's fully aware. Like, oh, you can gamble outside of your own sport, but it can't be on the team facility. Okay, so I can put a bet on college basketball from my house, but if I drive 10 minutes and I'm in the parking lot of the practice facility, then it's a 6-game suspension.
Right. It's all kind of convoluted when you think about it. And my overall thought is just like, listen, you want to make gambling legal? Okay, whatever. Just know that you're going to have these kinds of issues.
Yep. I'm not against the gambling. We just have to figure out all of the logistics that go along with it.
Right. And I don't look bad at anybody who gambles. Like that's your decision. Like if you want to do that, that's all you. I don't think you're hurting anybody but potentially yourself by doing it. But and though I mean, I think gambling issues need to be taken very, very seriously. But I don't look at someone as immoral or evil for gambling their own money on a sports game, especially. I mean, obviously there are other rings you could bet on that are completely immoral, but if it's legal gambling on professional sports or college sports or whatever, I don't see that as immoral or bad. I just think that sports entities need to understand, like, listen, you're willing to do this business, you're going to bring in this new revenue. Well, you know what? Then, there's going to be these issues, and you better be prepared to handle that, accept that, or do whatever. It's not going to be as easy to handle if you're choosing to go down this path.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big gambler, but when Big Dave started at CHGO, they were partnered with one of the gambling sites, and you got like a sweatshirt and like a year of their insider thing. If you put a $50 bet with whatever betting thing this was, betting app. So I did. I was like, okay, supports Big Dave. I get a sweatshirt out of it. And I've put in some NFL bets in it. I'm now at like $200 from my initial $50. But I just, that's it. I put $50 in like a year and a half ago, and that's it. Like I'm not like a gambler, but I don't, if you do it with your means, I don't care.
Right, exactly.
Enjoy yourself. It's like anything else. You buy baseball cards, you buy, sneakers, sneaker collector. It's a hobby.
Exactly.
Just you gotta keep the integrity of the sport, though.
Right.
Well, I think this is going to wrap up episode 500 of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody who's been there. I know a few people who've been there from the jump, and that's awesome. And thanks everybody for listening. And it's been a cool run so far.
It has. I mean, all the funny inside jokes we've made over the years with Ding Dong George and the Marty Havlat Crockpot and Joan Leckie and TW bags that are covered in dust and patches and just all sorts of fun things that we've had over the years. It's hard to believe just how fast this has all gone by, and how many Bears games we've talked about, how many Cubs and White Sox summers and Blackhawks and Bulls and all the other sports things out there we talked about. And here's to many more episodes. And again, I can't thank all the listeners over the years enough, because as I've been part of this show, we've grown. We've grown more listeners, and now that I have close friends that listen to the show regularly, and even coworkers now that listen to the show regularly, and it's kind of fun because I've heard stories of somebody I know. They're like, "Oh yeah, my friend, he listens to your podcast. He really like hearing that stuff means a lot, because we might not be 670 The Score, ESPN 1000, CHGO, but we pride ourselves on giving our listeners, fun entertainment that they can listen to, and a space where we can just be sports fans. We don't have to be these crazy uber analytical geniuses or with all these credentials, these reporters. We can just talk as sports fans, and it's been really special being part of it. And Sean, I'll still never forget when you reached out to me via Twitter and asked me to be part of this show. And little did I know that after all these years, I'd still be here looking forward to this every week. So
yeah,
fun.
I had a funny moment. Like just the other week, is somebody I know that listens to the show. He was like, I was talking to somebody and I mentioned Bills fan puke, and and he's like, I had to explain to them what that meant.
That's great.
Like I love the inside jokes. They're hilarious.
Explaining Bills fan puke. Gnarly.
But yeah, that's going to do it for episode 500 of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Thank you all so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends, how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, ShyFanPet2 for Alex on Twitter /X, and AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears!
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down